you have so much sprinting information out there, I'd like to go a different angle for a little while. So I have the gym here. I deal with some kids that come in, and I deal with some other kids. I talk to people wherever I'm at, and that was the consensus I got from kids. They ran track to be better at football or another sport. And what they found happened was they come out of track slower and injured. So it hurt their other sport. It didn't do what they wanted them to do. In that, I started researching some stuff, and I found Louis Simmons's book on running. Now, while you guys may not agree on the weights, I think your running and plyometrics is very close. So I was on a vacation in Florida. I was researching the book in the mornings and the afternoons when everybody was kind of asleep, kind of trying to develop a system, and it dawned on me, hey, how could you do this for wrestlers? Wrestlers are notorious grinders. And at 27 years old, they look like old men. They're beat up, they're sore, they're hurt. How could you take your feed the cats approach and put it in a wrestling room?
You know, I've had, I would say, between 10 and 20, really strong inquiries about how do we do a feed the cats wrestling. And for a long time, I was kind of like, because I have no wrestling background, it's kind of like, this is out of my league. I can't do this. But especially in the last 2 years, when I've started consulting with NCAA Division I lacrosse programs, I mean, like literally places that are, win national championships and they're in the Final Four, and Princeton now feeds the Tigers. And so it's kind of like, even though I can't play lacrosse, I've never held a stick, I've never played in a game, I've never watched a full lacrosse game. I can be of help to a sport that I'm foreign to. So now that you ask that, I may answer it for the first time ever. And so this is going to be you're making me think. And so, okay, performance is the key. We care about performance more than hard work. That changes everything right away. That if the hard work you're doing is hurting your performance, then you must do something different. If your athletes are so tired that they are miserable, and you know what I'm talking about, people that cut weight, what was the movie about wrestling, Vision Quest?
Yes.
That's a true Vision Quest is when Indians would go up into the mountains and nearly die from not eating food. And that's what wrestlers have done for decades. And I would like to think that even though I'm not a wrestler, that a Vision Quest is not a performance enhancer. If you're not eating and you're dehydrated to make weight, and you're spitting and wearing trash sacks to sweat more, and a lot of those things have been addressed in the last 10, 15 years, but it's still a sport that I see people, it's kind of like, how hard can we work these guys every single day? And so I believe in everything we do that there is the Pareto principle. The 20% of our work produces 80% of our results. And somebody asked me one time, is that scientific? And no, it's just kind of an idea. But it's a damn good idea. And basically what it's saying is that you need to look at what is truly making your kids great wrestlers. I would think it's speed and power. Now, it's not sprint speed, because you're not sprinting and wrestling. However, sprinting, the faster you can sprint, the better the central nervous system becomes. And maybe you are quicker. Maybe you are more explosive. You can express your strength faster. So if that quality is important, let's do things that really improve that quality. And one of the things that really improves that is your amount of rest, recovery, and sleep. And most wrestling programs don't talk a whole lot about rest, recovery, and sleep, and they should. It is the foundation of all performance. I mean, you and your job, a school kid, going to school. If they're not sleeping well, they're not going to perform well the next day. So I think it's really important that we look at the things that are the most important. As a basketball coach, I used to visit Bob Knight back in the 80s, and he was such a spectacular teacher and coach back then. Is before he turned kind of weird, kind of mean. But Bob Knight told me one time. He said, Tony, you got to look at everything you do, and say, is this helping me win games? And I'll never forget it. Like, is this helping me win games? And I thought about some of the drills we did that looked kind of interesting. It made me kind of look like a good coach or something, and say, that's not doing a damn thing to win games. Mm-hmm. And so in basketball, what wins games? Well, let's start with shooting. Number two, let's start with preventing the other team from scoring. Let's go to number three, the ability to move the ball without turning it over. And then start really focusing on those essentials. I love the book Essentialism, where it says, let's do less, but achieve more. Let's expand that 20% that Pareto talked about, creating the 80% of our results. And if you are in that tradition tribe, and it is a tribe, it makes us feel secure. If you're in that thing where you just say, trust the process, this is the way we do it, this is the way my coach used to do it, this is the way other coaches do it, then you're never looking at things and saying, that needs to go, and that needs to go, and that needs to go. And when you say those things, you don't have to replace them. Because as a coach, you don't have to practice 2.5 hours. We had a 45-minute practice tonight. That's all we went, 45. And tomorrow, if it takes 60, we'll go 60 or 75 minutes. So we are not going to fill. We are going to focus on the things that really matter to performance. And like you said previously, it's easier said than done. And you have to talk to other people who are thinking like that. I call them rebel talents. You need to find rebel talents out there that are willing to just not repeat the same crap year after year after year, but instead they're out reading crazy stuff like Feed the Cats propaganda and saying, man, what really does matter in wrestling? And even though I can't really tell you all the things that matter in wrestling, I bet somebody that was a great wrestling coach could tell me that. And then we could sit down with that guy and say, let's look at your practice and see if you're accomplishing the improvement of those things. He may find out that he's doing a lot of stuff that may be counteracting the stuff that he wants done. So I don't know if that's a real satisfying answer, but I think we're going in the right direction to creating. Oh, and then one last thing. Somehow wrestling coaches really sell wrestling to their athletes. I mean, it looks miserable to me. It looks like something I wouldn't do in a million years. But the people who wrestle are proud of it. And they, in a way, they love it. And so I think that sometimes that interferes with a coach's evaluation process. Like, hey, my guys love it, so we're doing everything right. I don't think we can be very comfortable with that. I think that we have to ask ourselves, running those 100 laps, did that make my guys better wrestlers? And if it didn't, then we need to really think hard about what we're doing.
So you're very much a minimalist. You want to look at a program and just start getting rid of cutting the fat wherever you can.
For sure. I'm the book Essentialism by McKeon is just it didn't change my life like it did a lot of people, but it reaffirmed my life. I say that I love when he says that if it's not a hell yes, you shouldn't say yes. Like we need to live our life with a hell yes attitude, and we really need to cut the fat. Kids are overextended these days.
I agree.
they, I mean, so many coaches don't have high school kids yet. They're not, because coaches, coach 8 years now and get out of it. And so they never really see sports through a kid's eye. And I mean, I had 4 kids, and that they would go to practice and sometimes, 3.5 hours and come home miserable. Now they still look forward to the games. And I'm sure if the head coach say, "Do you love this?" They say, "Oh, I love it, coach," because that's what they're taught. We were always taught to say we love the sport, and we love the hard work, and it's making me a man, and blah blah blah. But I think that we need to do better for kids.